At this very moment, Minsk is speaking the language of force. The armies are standing face to face. Belarus has lined up, NATO has taken a seat. The first signals of the beginning of a nuclear standoff. Russia is sinking, a historic naval battle. The GUR delivered a real surprise to the enemy, a triumphant victory for Ukraine. The arsenal of success bursts onto the battlefield. Caesar crushes the enemy. Drones put an end to it. The Caucasus is finishing off Putin. Is Armenia in the game too? All this in our episode Hellpoint. Shock! Minsk has bared its fangs. The Belarusian war machine has gone all in. Lukashenko has given an order with a hint of nuclear war. The world has just found out. Top secret military bases are on standby. The first footage is already online. A mega strike that could wipe out half the world. The dictator's hand hovers over the apocalypse button. The beginning has been set. Has Minsk really started the countdown, setting a course for NATO's destruction? We'll tell you more about this in the following report. Belarus is increasingly solidifying its role as Russia's military staging ground.
Announcer. The issue of a Russian base on Belarusian territory is discussed very often. Listen, it's a fabricated problem.
Journalists from the Schemes Project, together with the Belarusian Service of Radio Liberty and the Estonian outlets Delphi and Easty Express, analyzed dozens of Planet Labs satellite images from 2022 to 2025 and created a map of Belarusian military sites.
Currently, in Belarus, a dual process is taking place where either completely new military facilities are being constructed or existing older training grounds are undergoing significant modernization. The primary reason for this large-scale effort is, first and foremost, the strategic preparation of the country's military infrastructure. This is being done to accommodate and support a much more extensive and comprehensive level of training for military personnel belonging to the Russian Federation.
The largest construction is taking place near the village of Pavlivka, south of Minsk. Work here began in June 2024, and by September 2025, the area had already expanded to more than 2 square kilometers. That's roughly 280 football fields. Experts suggest that it is here that Russia may deploy its formidable Oreshnik ballistic missile system, the very same weapon Moscow loves to use to scare the world. This location was not chosen by accident. Previously, there was a Soviet base and military camp number 25 Pavlivka, where the Slutsk 306 Strategic Missile Regiment was stationed. It was armed with R-12 missiles as well as mobile Pioneer and Topol systems. After Belarus joined the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty in 1993, the regiment was relocated to Russia and the base was destroyed.
Narrator. In my opinion, these sites are connected to strategic level equipment that could be deployed in Belarus, whether it's Leshchina or something else. It might be nuclear weapons, since there could have been storage facilities for them at this location during the Cold War.
Satellite images capture large-scale activities, deforestation, earth embankments, the construction of 13 ammunition depots measuring 30 by 20 meters, 3 hangars 100 meters long, and foundations for future structures, all connected by a new network of roads. Overall, the facility consists of 4 sections, with the main 3 being almost equal in area. In fact, a real military district is taking shape.
Narrator. Honestly, I really cannot say what else this could possibly be. If the Oreshnik base appears here, it could be perfectly suited for this role.
The second base is being built on the outskirts of Gomel, less than 40 kilometers from the border with Ukraine. Construction here began at the end of 2023. They are building a training and tactical field, a parade ground, barracks, and a dining hall for 680 people. In terms of size and infrastructure, this facility matches the existing military bases of Belarus. It could potentially accommodate a brigade of about 3,000 soldiers.
Basically, what we're seeing now is that the military infrastructure of Belarus is really experiencing a second wind. This could be connected both to Lukashenko's desire to attract additional funding amid the wave of militarization coming from Putin. In other words, roughly speaking, Lukashenko is using this as an opportunity to upgrade the infrastructure of his own army. However, it's important to note that, speaking in general terms, this represents yet another clear demonstration of the potential threat that could emerge. This threat could come both directly from the Russian aggressor and also from Belarus, which could serve as a potential launching pad for such an attack.
Let us recall that in 2022, it was precisely the territory of Belarus that became the staging ground for the invasion of Ukraine. It was from here that columns of Russian military equipment advanced and about 700 missiles were launched. In addition, the modernization also affected the network of airfields. At the beginning of the full-scale war, Russia used the Belarusian airfields of Luninets, Lida, Baranovichi, Ziabrovka, and Machulishchi as launch pads for its aviation. Now, most of them have had their runways repaired, received new hangars, air defense systems, and fortifications.
Announcer. If Russia truly has plans for a new large-scale invasion of Ukraine or one of the EU countries from the territory of Belarus, it will be impossible without the mass redeployment of aviation to Belarusian airfields. It is precisely the movement of planes and helicopters to these bases, as well as the deployment of additional air defense systems, that will be an obvious signal of the Kremlin's preparations for offensive actions.
In the central part of the country, near Osipovichi, activity of the 465th Missile Brigade is being observed. New hangars for Iskander-M, warehouses, and even the construction of a separate railway branch between this brigade and the neighboring 1,405th Ammunition Base. It is this base that experts associate with the modernization of warehouse infrastructure to meet increased security requirements, not ruling out the possibility of storing Russian strategic-level munitions.
These military exercises themselves are undoubtedly a very serious and concerning signal, indicating the Russian Federation's direct and deliberate preparations, as well as the preparations being made by its allied satellite states for the potential initiation of active military actions. These actions could be directed either against the nation of Ukraine, specifically approaching from our northern front direction, or, and this is a scenario that is now considered much more realistic, of course, it could be related to the strategically important Suwałki Gap issue. Accordingly, a strike against Poland and Lithuania. Therefore, all of this is extremely alarming signals that are being actively assessed directly by NATO. And we see how, in parallel, the North Atlantic Alliance has, for many months now, first of all, been conducting a series of military exercises as well, starting with Iron Defender 2025 in Poland. And in October, there will also be nuclear exercises there. And in addition, of course, the redeployment of NATO forces closer to the alliance's eastern flank serves as a demonstration of readiness for possible provocations from the Russian Federation.
Belarus has long set itself on the path of complete subordination to Russia. New military bases, modernized training grounds, strategic missiles, all of this turns the country into a part of Putin's war machine. Every warehouse, every hangar, every road is yet another step toward making Belarusian territory a launch pad for new threats not only to Ukraine but to all of Europe. And judging by the pace of construction, this process is not just ongoing, it's accelerating. Right now there's a brutal battle at sea, a powerful strike by the GUR against the Kremlin's flagship. They're afraid to show Putin the video of the massive defeat. The home stretch, the Russian fleet is at the bottom. The cruiser Moskva is drawing ships to itself one after another. A historic moment. Everything was destroyed in a matter of minutes. This isn't a storm, it's true Ukrainian fury. An emergency withdrawal of the naval armada from Crimea. Will this save them? Don't miss what's next.
The Magura and Sea Baby naval drones, the main predators of the Black Sea, are hunting Russian fleet ships. Now Ukrainian aerial drones have joined them. With these, special forces from the Defense Intelligence of Ukraine attacked a Russian vessel near Novorossiysk. They hit the communication center of the MPSV-07 project ship precisely. It's called the Spasatel Ilian. But now, it's the one in need of rescue. It was commissioned in 2015 and was engaged in electronic intelligence, diving operations, and patrolling the approaches to the bay. The vessel is valued at $60 million. Before it was hit, there were only 4 such reconnaissance ships in Russia.
For the Black Sea Fleet of the Russian Federation, and not just for the Black Sea Fleet, this is a loss of sensitive information that they will no longer be able to obtain. And this will affect the effectiveness of, among other things, Russian strikes in particular.
This is not the first time Russian ships have been attacked from the air. At the end of August, the main intelligence directorate struck a Kalibr missile carrier in the Sea of Azov with an aerial drone. And this was a historic first. In total, since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, the forces of the main intelligence directorate, the Security Service of Ukraine, and the Navy have hit more than 20 ships of Russia's Black Sea Fleet. Some are subject to restoration, while others have been simply destroyed. The most expensive ship lost by Russia, both financially and in terms of image, remains the missile cruiser Moskva. It was worth more than $700 million, and the Ukrainian Neptune missile sent it to the bottom. Also among the top losses are the landing ships Novocherkassk, estimated at about $85 million, and Saratov, which cost nearly as much. Overall, the losses from destroyed and damaged Russian ships are estimated at over $1.5 billion.
Restoring this ship will be extremely difficult, and the repair itself is very expensive. Does the budget of the Russian Federation have these funds? I think it will be quite a problem to find them.
And it is precisely these losses that have forced the Russians to hide the remnants of their much-vaunted Black Sea fleet. All warships were withdrawn from temporarily occupied Crimea to Novorossiysk. Here are satellite images of the overcrowded port taken in mid-July.
They were forced to leave Crimea. They hardly ever visit the Sea of Azov anymore. All the more so, they no longer approach the central and western parts of the Black Sea. As for approaching our shores, that's not even being considered anymore. They can no longer freely go out to sea, block off maritime areas as they used to, or dictate their own rules.
And this is unprecedented. A country that essentially does not have its own navy now dominates the sea. Of all the possible tasks that were carried out, or rather, assigned to the Black Sea Fleet before the full-scale invasion, such as the blockade of Ukraine from the sea, a strategic naval landing operation, and supporting ground forces from the coastal direction, they are no longer able to carry out any of these tasks.
Russia will no longer be able to replace the destroyed ships. They can repair some of the damaged ones, but only by resorting to so-called ship cannibalization. That is, by taking parts from some vessels to use for others.
The vast majority of these damaged units will almost certainly never be able to perform their destructive work again, with the only possible exception being that they might be used for spare parts. In addition to this, the Russians are also facing a huge and ongoing problem with sourcing essential components, particularly for their many older legacy projects.
However, enemy ships are still capable of carrying out missions, namely launching missile strikes against Ukraine. The naval forces say that as of today, Russia has 8 missile carriers. However, they attack cautiously as well, and now not from under Crimea, but from Novorossiysk.
They can go out into Tsemes Bay, fire their missiles, and return. This has become standard practice. They can deploy submarines, keep them at sea for a while, and then use them unexpectedly. But again, considering the speed of missiles of this class, well, this element of surprise is rather conditional.
In addition, to preserve their ships, the Russians are constantly moving them around. True, it doesn't always help. Vladislav Palivoda, we are Ukraine. Marathon. The only news.
Konstantinovka is burning, the enemy is launching a swarm of drones, everything around is teeming. Our men circled the enemy around their finger and entered his rear. The earthworks finally broke through and hit the ground running. Russians are blown to pieces every second when they are at work. It's hard to believe. They push straight through and shoot point blank. Lightning fast work. The result is visible immediately. Putin's mercenaries are shaking with fear right in the trenches. Any move they make, and that's it. What do these wonder beasts of the front look like, and what can they do? We'll tell you in just a moment.
Not long ago, you could easily drive down this road to Sloviansk. Now it's better to turn off it. And if you do drive on, pedal to the metal. FPV drones now reach here. It's not just the new road signs that warn about this, but also the skeletons of burned-out cars. The enemy systematically targets logistics with drones, with increasing precision and ever deeper strikes. That's why ground robots are now taking on the job of delivering everything needed to the front line. In such missions, the coordination of the team, the coordination of the crew, plays a key role. And this is quite literally a matter of survival, because every extra second at the position increases the risk of a drone strike. Together with the crew of the 93rd Brigade, we're heading to the loading point. The soldier with the shotgun is watching not so much the sky as the ground. Near Kostiantinivka, there are quite a few so-called sleeper drones. They hide in standby mode by the roadside, waiting for high-value targets. And for the Russians, we are a very high-value target. A pickup truck with a ground robot. So the shooter needs to spot the FPV drone immediately, and preferably before it catches up to our pickup. Right now, the ground robot is being unloaded, and this is the riskiest part of the operation, because everything has to be done quickly, before the enemy's aerial scout spots this vehicle. Sometimes you just can't do without human hands. In just a few minutes, the fighters load heavy logs onto the iron back of the unmanned assistant, and it rather nimbly heads off toward the front line.
Establish contact.
The guys over there will have something to reinforce the dugout with if the robot makes it.
Come on. Let's go, go, go.
The next mission is just as important and just as risky. In the tunnel under the net, you feel protected from drones, but you have to dash out from under the net into open space. So we stop to check the sky.
How's the sky looking?
Clear.
Clear. All right, good. Let's go.
Kostiantynivka is a strategically important stronghold for the Ukrainian military. Dozens of aerial bombs fall on the city every day, and Russian drones fly over the maze of streets, hunting for the defenders of Kostiantynivka. But their main target is logistics. The starting point was chosen right in Kostiantynivka. From here, a tracked drone will deliver water to a remote observation post. The cargo is already on the platform. To reduce the time when we're exposed to the enemy, like in the palm of their hand, everything is done quickly. Now this drone will take water to the positions. Whether it makes it or not will determine if our guys can hold their positions.
Go, 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 go.
The Alter Ego ground robotic systems company carries out such missions every day. Gradually, all logistics and evacuation in the brigade are being shifted to robots.
In terms of logistics, this is something that will be standardized and made the same for all of our units. Our people will no longer have the burden of carrying mines or even heavy mortars all by themselves. Furthermore, they will be guaranteed to receive a sufficient supply of food and clean water. And please, name this card. What card is this?
That's the Queen of Spades.
Okay, it happens. There's nothing, it happens.
The chief engineer of the ground robotics unit of the Kolodny Yar Brigade was a professional magician before the war. Now he continues to amaze by having his platforms accomplish tasks with a star, ones that just yesterday were considered impossible.
I can carry 200 kilograms at a time, 300, even half a ton.
But it doesn't always go that way. If the enemy spots Ukrainian platforms, they unleash an entire arsenal on them, from mines and shells to FPVs and Lancets. They hit especially hard and mercilessly at the vehicles evacuating the wounded. But with a robot, you don't have to risk one life to save another. And the wounded have a better chance because robots mean save time. Without them, sometimes there's no chance of evacuation at all.
If you pay attention, for example, well, this is our most battle-hardened vehicle. It's already been hit several times, as you can see. There are damages, shrapnel and marks left by FPV strikes.
This thing, as I said, is a legend because it has survived about 11 or 12 FPV hits.
If these were people, riflemen, infantrymen, that would be minus 11 soldiers.
Yeah, that's minus 11 soldiers.
In the area of Kostiantynivka, the vehicles armed with machine guns are now starting to carry out assault missions as well. Missions like these were considered impossible just a year ago.
I didn't believe it myself either, but I've already carried out 3 or 4 such operations. Now everyone is arming themselves with machine guns, turrets, Brownings, because they've seen and realized that it's effective.
Right now, the engineers of the 93rd Brigade are preparing a wheeled robot with a VGC machine gun for deployment. The test firing is underway. The operators are satisfied with the shooting accuracy. Now all that's left is to wait for nightfall and move the drone as close as possible to the enemy's dugouts.
Can you hear the microphone? Are they not shooting at you?
The Russians, it seems, didn't expect anyone to get so close to them, and at first they didn't even return fire at the Ukrainian machine gun. But then apparently they came to their senses.
What?
A response just happened, it seems.
But the one pulling the trigger is actually out of reach. He is located kilometers away from the occupiers' positions.
For now, it's mostly suppressive fire. So yes, we do have confirmation of enemy destruction, but there are shortcomings in reaction speed. So it's not about years of retraining, there's an electronic component to it.
So the revolution of ground drones hasn't happened yet. But it's already clear what exactly could suddenly bring it closer. Can such systems work with artificial intelligence so that the system itself selects targets?
I must admit, I'm a bit afraid of this, primarily because right now we simply can't come up with a reliable safeguard that will absolutely and definitely work in the event that a friendly unit unexpectedly enters the system's overall field of view.
However, if Ukrainians are the first to teach such systems to select targets on their own, it will once again change the nature of the war and help hold out in conditions where there is a critical shortage of infantry in the trenches. Andriy Tsaplienko, Ilya Shinkarenko, Serhiy Perfilov, TSN Week, 1+1, Marathon, United News.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
Armenia takes an unexpected step toward reconciliation with its neighbors. After a decade of cold relations between Yerevan and Ankara, the ice of alienation is beginning to melt. Official agreements have been signed, the borders are open, and this poses a serious challenge for Putin. Moscow is stunned. Its allied countries are establishing ties right in its shadow. What happens next? Is the era of Russian influence in the Caucasus ending right now? The answer is close at hand.
A major event for Armenia. After nearly 33 years of isolation, the country is ready to restore its relations with its neighbor and reopen the shared border.
There are no delays whatsoever on the Armenian side. We are ready to open the borders and establish diplomatic relations as soon as tomorrow.
The lengthy Armenian-Turkish border actually stretches for a grand total of 328 kilometers, beginning from the important triple border junction with the nation of Georgia in the north, and running all the way to the corresponding junction with Azerbaijan in the south. It has been closed since April 3, 1993, when Turkey unilaterally blocked the border, officially citing the occupation of Azerbaijani regions by Armenian forces as the reason. Back then, 30 years ago, the Ankara government promised to open the border only on the condition that Armenia would stop seeking international recognition of the Armenian genocide by the Turks and withdraw its troops from the conflict zone in Nagorno-Karabakh. And now, in 2025, it seems that the disagreements between the neighboring countries have been resolved.
Experts believe that here too, Yerevan is trying to shift the focus away from territorial claims and instead make efforts to build peaceful relations with its neighbors.
Armenia has only recently adopted a new decisive course toward reconciliation with its neighbors. It was only in August of this year that an official ceremony was held at the White House to sign a peace agreement with Azerbaijan. The document stipulates that both Baku and Yerevan renounce mutual territorial claims and also agree to cease the use of force against each other. And now, just a month later, Armenia is ready to put old grievances behind and start a new chapter in its history with neighboring Turkey by opening the land borders between the two countries.
This can be seen as something of an important epilogue to the significant meeting held on August 8th in Washington. After this meeting in Armenia, Azerbaijan, and indeed many other countries, people genuinely started talking about the real possibility for the arrival of a lasting peace. And perhaps, from another angle, this is a strategic way for Turkey to further extend its considerable influence over Armenia.
However, experts explain that the intention to open the borders should not be confused with the actual launch of local border checkpoints. Despite Armenia's clear desire to be friends with its neighbors again, the decision to reopen border crossings will not be made by Turkey alone.
I think that here no decision will be made without coordinating with Azerbaijan.
Experts note that there is still no breakthrough. The borders remain closed and trade only happens through third countries. And even diplomatic relations have not been established. And the main reason is still the same unresolved issues with Azerbaijan.
Turkey's position in the Caucasus is stronger than ever, and the opening of the borders with Armenia will only strengthen the loyalty of the local population of Donkara, analysts assure. However, some experts believe that the border between Turkey and Armenia will not be opened either this year or in the near future. After all, talks about this have been ongoing since as far back as 2020. On February 11th, 2023, it seemed that the end of the blockade was already near. At that time, the border was temporarily opened for the first time in 30 years to deliver humanitarian aid from Armenia. This was for those affected by the severe earthquake in Turkey and Syria. Afterwards, Erdogan thanked them for their support and once again locked the gate at his checkpoint. After all, Ankara can assert its presence in the Caucasus even without opening its borders.
This means an increase in Turkish influence in Armenia, which in turn means a rise in Turkish influence in the South Caucasus. But they say there is a personal political promise between Mr. Erdogan and Mr. Aliyev. So despite the fact that we understand that the normalization of Armenian-Turkish relations is beneficial for Turkey, Azerbaijan is still more important to Turkey than Armenia.
The one single thing that all experts seem to agree on is that no matter how events may ultimately unfold in the sphere of Turkish-Armenian relations, The outcome will be considerably more favorable than the current state of Ukraine's relations with contemporary Russia. In recent years, Russia has lost all its former influence over the region, ceding this position to Turkey.
Russia will be completely pushed out of the region if this is true. It seems that it has no leverage or any moves left to influence the situation. In other words, the bar had already been lowered. Everything Russia could have done needed to be done back in 2020.
They are tearing them apart, killing and shredding the enemy to pieces. Our people have tamed these fierce beasts and are accomplishing the impossible. Shots are literally tearing the enemy's manpower to pieces. Fierce local drones seize the initiative, and the SOVA system delivers the final chord. This triad steamrolls the enemy. You have to see this. These close-up shots of their work are not to be missed.
His Majesty Caesar, 155 millimeters of French Fury. Precise, mobile, high-tech, and most importantly, effective on the front line. More and more. There are now so many of these systems in various Ukrainian units that the enemy can no longer ignore them, and very soon it will be the artillerymen of the newly formed 147th Brigade of the Territorial Defense who will be striking the Russians with these same weapons on the front lines. For now, the soldiers are undergoing combat coordination. A firing range of over 40 kilometers with a rate of fire of 6 rounds per minute. These figures are impressive both on paper and already on the ground. But before they can strike the enemy so precisely with the 155mm caliber on the front line, the crews must hone their skills at the training ground.
This is
the work of the Caesar artillery platoon. 2 crews, in just a few minutes, take up position and deploy the gun. Next, they receive coordinates from reconnaissance and... However, for now, without actually firing. But their hands must memorize every movement. So that in battle, the crew works as a single, well-coordinated mechanism. The soldier is known as Black, the commander of one of the guns. His combat path began back in 2022. He immediately joined the artillery, but at first fought with Grad rocket systems. Later, together with his comrades, they decided to try something new, NATO standard equipment. And that brought him here, to the 147th.
The first impression was like switching from an old Soviet car to a foreign one. It seems cool, there's cruise control, adaptive cruise control if you need it. You just need to figure out, so to speak, how to turn it on. But once you get familiar with all of this, the work becomes much easier. Here, there's no need for manual aiming or orientation. The machine does everything for you. The main thing is to master the computers, understand what you're doing, and then you can destroy the enemy.
To help these guys strike the enemy accurately, there's a sizable team supporting them. The entire process is monitored 24/7 by the command center. Here, battery and platoon commanders receive reconnaissance data and give orders to the crews.
Target 109. That's a confirmed enemy vehicle. Using shell M107.
The soldier, call sign Dorjavyi, is getting used to his new role as a Caesar platoon commander. Before this, he fought using Soviet Tu-S1 howitzers. He says the Gvozdikas can pack quite a punch too. But our army can't afford to stand still.
It's also important to discover new things for yourself, because getting stuck on old Soviet equipment is one thing. When you work with new equipment in new ways, your prospects grow.
Moreover, our allies keep supplying us with the latest equipment, but it's the crews that are the new gold. So they're waiting for proactive young people here, saying they'll teach you everything. The main thing is the desire to learn, and of course, at least some basic school knowledge.
You need to know a bit of math. After all, as they say, school always comes in handy.
But to ensure that the command post always has up-to-date information, another group of specialists must work tirelessly. It's impossible to imagine the work of artillery in modern warfare without aerial correction. Drone operators are an integral part of the artillery brigade.
Here,
the guys are improving their piloting skills and coordination between units. The process is overseen by a soldier with the call sign Toyota. The man started out in the infantry. That's why he knows well how important it is to have your own eyes in the sky. Now he says the main thing is to keep up with the technological race.
back when I first joined, we used to fly, say, 4 to 5 kilometers. For us, that was a big deal, you know, we felt like heroes. But now we can fly 12 kilometers, even up to 20. We can even reach that far.
I'm proud that I became a drone operator because it's a profession without which the front line just isn't the front line anymore.
Another crucial pillar of artillery is specialized reconnaissance. And here, Ukrainian specialists have plenty to surprise the Russians with. This is an optical reconnaissance system called SOVA, OWL. Simply put, it's a special camera that can detect enemy artillery fire at distances of over 30 kilometers.
We see flashes on the camera and accordingly determine the angles. Several of these systems are deployed by the brigade, and using triangulation, we determine the positions of enemy artillery and assign them for further reconnaissance.
But to obtain even more precise data for this system, the guys still need one more component. Called Barak 2, this unique Ukrainian development can quickly and accurately locate enemy guns by sound alone.
These are passive reconnaissance systems that do not emit any signals, and they complement each other. In other words, optics detect flashes, sound picks up artillery fire, and they either confirm or do not confirm each other, which increases our chances of striking enemy artillery.
The cost of such a system is over 2 million hryvnias. It's a significant amount, but this is a matter of effectiveness and the safety of our artillerymen. After all, it's a race against the Russians, who are also constantly searching for Ukrainian positions. The price of losing this race here is life itself.
This equipment is needed right now, because the crews need to be trained immediately.
We can all help provide the 147th Artillerymen with this system together. Use the QR code you see on the screen, and remember, there's no such thing as a small donation. At the same time, you can support the unit not only with money, but also with your own initiative by joining the assault troops.
Why join our forces specifically? In other words, we are better. And why our brigade? Because we are better too. The brigade will be equipped exclusively with the latest artillery weapons, one of which you can see behind me. Every single new step that the enemy takes is consequently also a brand new step for us. And so we must continually adapt ourselves to all the different weather conditions, to the various means and tactics they use, and we make sure that we are learning valuable lessons as well.
Ihor Romachlo, Roman Sherbakov, reporting for the United News Network.
That's all from me for now. This was Yadarina Hutskalo with you. Even more intense news from the front in our next broadcast. In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe and like. See you soon.